present this to you, and we want to thank Surana and Surana Associates from Chennai. And I would like to welcome Mr. Vinod Surana, who's the managing partner, who's going to be the moderator today. He is the managing partner and CEO of Surana and Surana International Attorneys in Chennai, based out of Chennai. And they work very actively with Russian partnerships, and he's qualified from prestigious institutions like Harvard, Cornell and LSE, London School of Economics, and the IIM. He also coaches ASSOCHAM, Southern India Development Council. He chairs the National Institution for Quality Advisory Board. He was the first non-American to be elected as the president of the International Law Students Association in 1999. So he's got a good privilege of being out of the first 100 legal luminaries of India, and recognized as one of the leading merger and acquisition lawyers by the authorities. He has led several industry delegations and American countries, South America, and also Israel to promote defense and diplomatic and political trade interests. So also he's working on successfully moderating the conceptualization of the defense manufacturing corridor in Tamil Nadu, one of the first of its kind in the country. And he's also visiting faculty at various law institutions in universities. He inspires and guides law students to achieve international standards in comprehensive education. Under his leadership and administration, over 200 competitions have been conducted till date. And he's a rare combination of a successful lawyer, trained mediator, independent director. He's a voice of the industry, policy advisor, strategist, and a close advisory committee on also the Indian Economic Trade Organization's various activities that have been happening in the southern part of India, especially in Chennai. So today's India-Russian dialogue was initiated on the backdrop of this overall relationship building and a series of seminars that Surana and Surana with ITU is conducting. I would like to thank our participants today and briefly introduce to all the four panelists today. Mr. Saeed Ahmad, who's from Tech Invention, who's working very actively in the current COVID crisis with the vaccination programs and various medical collaborations with Russia. Olga Kulikova is here. She's working on the overall India business partnerships and heading the Russian ambassador side for the partnerships with India. And we at the Indian Economic Trade Organization are a think tank and a policy advocacy body that lobbies for the various industrial and the commercial interests of foreign trade ministries in India. And of course, we have then Mr. Sergei Ilyanov. So he's also here, and he's also from the Russian side, working very actively with the BRICS. So we will look forward today to welcome you all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As I welcome Dr. Vinod Surana to introduce our participants and start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asif Iqbal. Thank you very much for those warm words of introduction. My very humble greetings to this extremely distinguished panel, and also to our diverse audience from the defense, aerospace, pharma, and healthcare sectors from across India and Russia. I am told we have participants who have joined us on this Zoom call and also from other platforms which are broadcasting live, like the LinkedIn and Facebook. Today's webinar is the 6th knowledge series which my firm is conducting this year. This knowledge series is conducted for our clients, our colleagues, and our industry contacts to apprise them of the latest developments, contemporary issues of national and international significance. Quickly lay down the format for the session. We will have the session for about 60 to 90 minutes. I will give my brief introductory remarks and overview of the subject, introduce the topic. Then we have 4 panelists who will each speak for about 10 minutes, giving their views on the defense and healthcare sectors. We will have 20 minutes of Q&A, which I believe will be the most productive session for all our viewers. The object of this knowledge series is also to increase the awareness and to expand India-Russia ties. So thanks to my good friend and the dynamic president of the Indian Economic Trade Organization, Mr. Asif Iqbal, it is a pleasure to partner with the ITEO for this webinar on the subject of Russia-India strategic partnership. As I was mentioning to the panelists before we went live, this is a subject which has been very close to my heart since my school days. I was mentioning that to my left, we have the MiG-21 fighter, which I once dreamed about as a school student to fly until I got my glasses. So since those days, I have been enamored of Russian planes and Russian equipment and Russian technology. I am reminded today of the words of India's first scientific and defense advisor, Mr. D.S. Kothari, who accompanied the then Defense Minister of India, Mr. Krishna Menon, to Russia in the early 60s. At the ceremonial dinner, he raised a glass of pure water and proposed a toast saying, to a relationship between our countries which is as pure, as essential, and as life-giving as aqua pura or pure mineral water. India and Russia have had very close cooperation since India's independence. In 1953, the Indo-Soviet Trade Agreement was signed, which also formalized the rupee-ruble trade and opened the floodgates of development in India of the steel sector and the introduction of the latest military hardware in the Indian Defense Forces. A lot of water has flown below the bridge in the last 60, 70 years. Today, India's military and manufacturing base has a solid Russian, or rather earlier it was Soviet, foundation. Both our countries have a double taxation avoidance treaty and are expected to sign in a few months the India-Eurasian Economic Union Free Trade Agreement. This, I believe, will open the floodgates of prosperity, investments, and trade in the entire Eurasian region. In 2019 November-December period, when the Indian Prime Minister visited Russia, a joint statement was released in Vladivostok, which laid the groundwork for many important decisions. One of the key declarations was that by 2025, India-Russia trade must reach $30 billion. The joint declaration also spoke about the signing of the India-Russia intergovernmental agreement to promote and protect investments. It spoke about cooperation in setting up of nuclear power plants in third countries jointly, just like India and Russia work together to set up a nuclear power plant in Rupur, Bangladesh. It spoke about intensifying cooperation in the education sector and about mutual recognition of academic credentials. This, I think, will go a very long way in strengthening bonds between the youth of both countries. The declaration also spoke about making quick and further progress through the Indo-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technological, and Cultural Cooperation. Apart from the points which I have just mentioned, Russia is also an indispensable partner in India's nuclear energy program. In my state of Tamil Nadu, Russia has already set up 2 nuclear plants in a place called Kudankulam, and it is in the process of setting up 4 more nuclear power plants. So that is a very big project in the Indo-Russian nuclear cooperation space. Similarly, in the last few years, with global warming increasing and a navigation route being opened throughout the year in the Northern Hemisphere, India and Russia are working closely in the Arctic region. However, I believe the immediate and biggest opportunity for India and Russia is in the defense sector. I am told that as of last year, 62% of India's total imports were from Russia, and almost 70% of India's military hardware across the three defense forces are of Russian origin. What this means is, for the next 30 to 40 years, at least, Indian companies, along with the Russian companies, under the Make in India program, the Make in India initiative, will have close to $20 to $25 billion worth of opportunities for weapons upgradation and introduction of new platforms through joint ventures and technology transfers in the form of new ships, missiles, drones, next generation tanks, etc., etc. On the medical front, I am told that 95% of Indian student population in Russia pursue medicine. There are over 300 Indian companies who are registered in Russia, and many of them are actively dealing in pharmaceutical ingredients and pharmaceutical products. However, I am told there are only 33 or 35 Russian companies which are active in India. So obviously, there seems to be tremendous scope for engaging with the Russian companies in India. So in this background, and given the immense potential for growth in the India-Russia strategic partnership space, we have an excellent panel to enlighten us further on how we can engage with Russia, where we must start, what we must be careful about, things like that. So I will introduce each panelist and request them to share their views. As has been the tradition in my law firm, ladies are always given the first preference, and therefore we will start with our first panelist, Ms. Olga Kuliklova. Ms. Olga Kuliklova is the business ambassador in India from Business Russia, which is an all-Russia public organization of local business leaders. Business Russia was founded in 2001 and represents over 7,000 enterprises and over 400 deputies from the federal and regional parliaments. Business Russia is represented in all the 85 regions of the Russian Federation. Ms. Kuliklova also heads the Russia-India Business Council and assists Russian companies doing business in India. She is also a member of the General Council of the All Russian Public Organization. Ms. Kuliklova, please tell us about your many experiences in promoting India-Russia trade, the challenges faced, the opportunities you see, and your top 3 points or takeaways for our audience on how to engage with Russia. Over to you, Ms. Olga Kuliklova.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. One more time, thank you for inviting me to speak in this very interesting event. And it is my great pleasure to share my views on the situation, what is currently happening between Russia-Indian relations. As I'm a representative of a business, All Russia Public Organization, we have mostly SMEs companies which represent all spheres, and many of them are very keen on export, on doing export. And of course, India, since recently, has become one of the target destinations for Russian companies to export, as well as to working with Indian partners. So right now, of course, as it was correctly mentioned, and everybody knows about Russia-Indian relations and political relations and historical relations. And right now, we want to increase the trade between our countries to boost them. And of course, I think that right now it is a very good time to start that and to make things happen. And of course, right now, because of the COVID situation, things have changed a little bit. More and I'm not very much correct, a little bit for some companies, significantly for the others. So somehow right now everybody's trying to find the compromise. That's why cooperating with India has become very interesting. And if you can see, there are a lot of webinars and a lot of organizations that try to attract India's attention to the Russian market. So as I have mentioned, the pandemic situation has influenced a lot in some spheres, especially pharma and healthcare. And these are the sectors that I consider would be of a particular interest for Indian companies. And of course, everybody knows that India is number one in pharma. And of course, a Russian market can be of a particular interest. And again, as I have mentioned, because of the pandemic, the situation has changed. And right now, the market value has grown up to 2,000 billion rubles. So that's a huge amount. The increase and the increase has been up to 10%. And right now, our government is looking into the development of this industry. And there are a lot of investments from the governmental and as well as the private side that are planned. So that would be my number one recommendation, is to pay particular attention to pharma sector, to investment in this sphere, in opening factories, plants, and in making presence in Russia for pharma companies, because the plan is to increase by year 2024 is to increase the value of pharma of medicine up to 53%. So this, I see a very good potential for Indian companies. Also, there is a plan for increase up to 56% for the share of organizations that can provide innovative and technological approach in pharma. So this type of companies would be also very welcome here. I mean, in Russia. Apart from that, there is one southern region, Samara region. They are now planning to do the cluster of pharmaceutical companies. So they are inviting Indian pharma companies to make their presence there, because they would face a lot of privileges in the production first, and then in distribution, in sales of their products. So that we consider to be also of a particular interest possible interest of the Indian pharma companies. Apart from that, of course, healthcare sector has also suffered a lot of changes, and now is one of the first ones in the topic of our government, and in the topic, of course, of private companies. And in healthcare, of course, the particular attention is paid to the digital health, and that also can be a very interesting segment for Indian companies, since we know that Indians are very good in IT, and I'm sure there are a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunities that Indian companies can offer for our healthcare system. So right now in digital health, there are three trends. First is for personal medicine and personal services, like personal tests, like different screenings, like digital applications for personal use. And this type of things are now being promoted by our huge ecosystem companies like Sberbank, if you probably heard of that. That's our huge ecosystem. They have started that, and I'm sure that would be followed by the others. So second one, there would be the different technical applications for prediction of different diseases. That is a second trend in digital health that we have now. And finally, that is of course as we call it, telemedicine. So that is a different. That is completely digital healthcare, or that is the use of different digital devices like chatbots or applications to connect with the doctors all around. And so it could be approached by all citizens on our large territory. So that is number 3 in digital health that might be of interest. Apart from that, of course, a part of digital health and pharma that are very welcome and can be interesting. Of course, also there are a lot of industrial parks in Russia that provide a lot of opportunities for technical companies that develop technical products and different types of equipment, because they give outstanding conditions for foreigners, and taking into consideration good relations with Indians, they are now more oriented, and political situation, of course, they are now more focused, oriented to Asian companies. So that would be also of particular importance. And speaking about, let's say, three main factors, 3 main problems or possibilities, I can call them all, I can combine them all in 3. That first of all, for Indian companies to enter the Russian market, you need to you have to be aware of this market. So learning information about it, that would be my number one suggestion. Because even though you can read on the internet a lot of information, since there are a lot of specificity that might be out there as well, it's just the same as in the Indian market. So knowing information is number 1. Then secondly, of course, is finding the right partner. That is number 2. I'm sure that is the same for India. And we in Business Russia, we can, of course, we always make sure that the company, the partner we advise is a reliable and well-established company. And of course, number 3 is I don't want to call it a good mood, but this is something like to be positive. It's not an easy way. It's not, but taking necessary steps will, of course, will definitely bring to the positive results. Though there can be some stones on this road. So we in Business Russia, we help foreign companies to overcome that, to make the way smooth. However, there are a few, of course, there can be different situations, though we still we still help in companies to cope with that. So overall, so summing it all up, I would say that Russia has a very good potential as a market, even though we're only 150 million people, but our territory is huge. So there are a lot of applications, and I welcome all companies from India to think about going to the Russian market. And we will help you with that, and I'm sure you will be successful, and we will help our countries to make the numbers for the mutual trade rise year by year. So thank you very much. I hope I was clear on some topics. If you have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. And thank you once again for inviting me to participate in this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. You are not only a wonderful business ambassador, but you are also on the dot. 10 minutes, you finished in 10 minutes. It is very rare that I get such a panelist, because I have to often embarrass the panelists by asking them to cut short their speech. Thank you very much for putting across your points very clearly, very systematically, within the time frame. There are a lot of questions which are coming in. We will place them before you during the question answer session. Now we move on to our next speaker, Mr. Syed Ahmed. Mr. Syed Ahmed, he is the founder and CEO of Tech Innovation Life Care. He has been very passionate about making global health equity a reality. He and his colleagues work with great devotion to build capacity of essential and novel biologies in the developing world. They have successfully worked on projects in different parts of the world, starting from Central America to CIS, to Turkey, to BRICS countries, among others. He has also worked on the commercialization of vaccine projects in the developing world. Speaking of vaccines, I think it is a very important word in today's world. Mr. Syed Ahmed, please share with us and with our participants your experiences, your views on the opportunities for Indian and Russian companies in the pharmaceutical and health sectors. Over to you, Mr. Syed Ahmed.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. Is my screen audible?
Yes.
Is my screen visible? Sorry.
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, Mrs. Surana and IETO, for having me here. It is always indeed a pleasure to talk about Russia-India collaborations, giving our fantastic experience with the wonderful people in Russia. Although Olga has touched a lot about healthcare, I don't think I'm competent to speak about healthcare at large. I would like to speak a little more about pharmaceuticals and vaccines in particular. Although post-COVID vaccines, like you mentioned, has become a very important aspect all across the world. But we in Tech Invention have been working specifically in the domain of vaccines since inception. Having said this, in the arena of vaccines, there are two very important developments that have happened between Russia and India in the recent past. Not long ago, just about a few years ago, we have had this strategic collaboration between Rostec in Russia and one of the largest manufacturers of vaccines in India, Serum Institute, which is a manufacturing collaboration for one of the very important vaccines globally, which is a rotavirus vaccine, followed by other vaccines, which is indeed one of the historic agreements or collaborations in the vaccines front between emerging markets. Not to left behind, of course, as the other panelists did mention, that a successful collaboration is one where there is give and take. The recent COVID has brought about a huge surge of demand for COVID vaccines, and all of us are aware that Sputnik has one of the biggest collaborations with Indian companies globally, worldwide. I would say it is the largest collaboration worldwide for Sputnik for manufacturing in India, where currently it is being manufactured in well over 5 sites with a target of 1 billion doses within a span of 1 year. And we hope that this would come through, given all that the trouble that the world is going through. So these are two of the biggest collaborations that we see on the vaccine front, one on technology from India and the other on technology from Russia. Very interestingly, very recently, in fact, as recent as June, the Department of Science and Technology had announced for Indo-Russia joint research call between organizations in Russia and organizations in India to come together, which, if would qualify, would get well funded by DST. This is another very important milestone. Although there have been calls in the past, this has been a very recent one. And of the 7 areas that you observe, wherein the Indo-Russia joint research call domain would qualify, point number 2 is on smart healthcare and medicine. And point number 4 is plant and animal biotechnology, both very important aspects as far as healthcare is concerned. I'm sure that quite a few companies have applied for this and would benefit from this very important joint research call. I would also like to place on record for my colleagues from the Indian pharma industry that Russia has announced a list of strategically important medicines, production of which must be ensured from the territory of Russia by 2021. There are 185 targeted products in this. And like Ms. Olga mentioned, these would be high on priority. This is very much on the public domain. I'm already sharing the URL. And of course, through IETO, we should be able to support sharing more of details of this list. And the interesting part is there are quite a few generics. There are quite a few specialty medicines, oncology, immunosuppressants, and vaccines, as well as some biosimilars. So this is a very good opportunity for Indian companies to get into collaboration and manufacturing tech transfers in the territory of Russia. This list would gets revised every year, and the list that I've just talked about is the one which is published very recently, updated very recently. This keeps getting updated based on the demand supply gap every year. So this is the current list which can be focused upon by Indian manufacturing companies. Coming to specifically my experience in Russia, or my company's experience in Russia, we started talking about vaccines a few years ago. And our collaboration from Tech Invention India, as Ms. Olga said, you need to have a good partner first. You need to ascertain the demand supply gap, potential, and so on. We identified that vaccines was of paramount importance for Russia. And we tied up with a company called St. Petersburg Institute, which is in this beautiful city of St. Petersburg, where the forum was held just about a month ago, which Dr. Asif talked about. St. Petersburg Institute is part of FMBA, and they are amongst the largest manufacturers for influenza vaccines. So we started a technology transfer project for a conjugate vaccine from India to Russia, which was indeed one of the successful projects, because the product is now already in human clinical trial phase 2. A sequel to this, when we looked at tech transfer from India to Russia, we also looked at what is it that St. Petersburg Institute would offer, not only to India, but also to some of the emerging markets and the low middle income countries worldwide. And that's when we saw that St. Petersburg Institute had a fantastic capacity for manufacturing of influenza vaccines. Now, all of you are aware that influenza has 2 aspects to it. One is the northern hemisphere and one of the southern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere is what St. Petersburg used to manufacture, but during the southern hemisphere, most of the influenza manufacturing facilities, the capacities remain idle. And that's when we started thinking about how do we utilize the capacity for the southern hemisphere. As we were discussing this, the government of Russia decided to invest in a manufacturing facility in a far distant place called Nicaragua in Latin America. And this happened with support from the Indian company Tech Invention, where we were on technical and strategic advisory, and our relationship started going beyond borders. I'm happy to say that today this is one of the most successful projects for vaccine manufacturing in Latin America, which is funded by Russia, and it is a public-public partnership between the government of Russia and government of Nicaragua. and which is very difficult, which you normally see. Even a private-public partnership has challenges, but this is a public-public partnership and doing very well. This is supporting supply of vaccines, immunobiologicals, and specialty products from Nicaragua all across Central America. And slowly the objective is to start exporting products all across Latin America, where there is a significant demand-supply gap. This opens up another opportunity for Indian companies to work with the partners in Nicaragua, which is Meshnikov Biotech, which is supported through Russia, to not only export their finished products, but also work on tech transfers and supply of products, especially when it comes to the immunobiological segments, biosimilars, vaccines. All of us are aware these have to be supplied in 2 to 8 degrees. It is way off, all the way from India to Central America. You can supply the products in, if I may say so, a CKD form, API, okay, bulk, which can then get formulated, filled, packed, and then you can sell it all across or supply it all across Central America. This triad has become very interesting, and this ecosystem can support Indian companies not only to take their products into Russia, but also into Central America. And very soon, we will make some public announcements of this triad also moving beyond this 3 countries to Malaysia, where we've just signed an MOU for influenza vaccine manufacturing from Russia with technology and support from India. So this is going beyond the 3 countries that we initially envisaged, and we look forward to supporting such collaborations in other emerging markets and rest of the world countries very soon. So in a nutshell, there are tremendous opportunities. To name a few based on our experience, Indian companies can work with manufacturing companies to specifically work on the list of 185 products that we talked about, which are important, where you will get priority status. Second is Russian companies can work on technology transfer for genetically engineered phages and recombinant lysines to India. This is an emerging concept worldwide, and this is one of the biggest domains to manage the antimicrobial resistance, which has been happening because of extensive use of antibiotics. And in fact, what today even developed economies are looking at to develop the lysines and the phage concept-based products, the Russian scientists have worked on this, optimized it, and commercialized it successfully almost 2 decades ago. This is a good opportunity for Indian companies to partner with Russian companies who have validated and successfully commercialized this technology, because diseases pertaining to antimicrobial resistance is a big challenge in India. Second is the aspect of the Latin American facility, which is funded by Russia. It's not just a facility, but there is also a biological safety level 3 R&D facility, which opens the doors for scientists from Russia, scientists from India, R&D labs, manufacturing companies to come together for joint projects, for which there is a need in Latin America. So this is a second good opportunity. And the lab in BSL-3 is fully for BSL-3 at Meshnikov is fully functional and open to such collaborations. And last but not the least, Indian companies through Russia can work on manufacturing sterile products for supplies to Latin America. These are the few possibilities that can come through this triad and through this ecosystem that's put in place. A lot more possibilities on the anvil, and we will be happy to support IETO and Messrs. Surana and Surana in any of the initiatives that you undertake to making a success of this collaboration. I'll be happy to take some questions during the Q&A session. Thanks a lot. Mr. Vinod, Dr. Vinod, you're on mute.
Sorry, you are on mute. That is the most famous quote of the pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Syed Ahmed. Very precise, comprehensive. You gave us a lot of thoughts. There are some questions coming in already on this list of 185 and how we can go about identifying joint venture partners, where we can set up things like that. So I'm going to leave those thoughts with you. We will be asking you those questions once the question and answer session starts. Thank you very much. Next, we have with us a very unique personality, Mr. Sergi Oriano. Sergi Oriano is a graduate of the Military Red Banner Institute, the very famous institute under the Ministry of Defense of the former Soviet Union. He did his post-graduation in religious philosophy. He has been an investigator in the military prosecutor's office. He has held many positions. Currently, he is the president of the International Diplomatic Club and the executive director of the Russian-Korean Business Council. Mr. Oriano established the Veda Renaissance International Spiritual Theatre to stage, disseminate, and popularize Vedic philosophy. This theatre has performed across various cities of Russia, Europe, and India. Mr. Oriano, we would like to know from you your experiences on how the India-Russia relationship began. It was as if two natural brothers came together. What are your views on the philosophy of India and Russia? What are your views on how culture plays a very important role in bringing the two nations together naturally? Of course, we would also like to know your views on the pharmaceutical, medical, and defense industries as well. Over to you, Mr. Oriano.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be a part of this huge, great, and very significant event. I want to congratulate all participants, all guests with this beautiful and very historical event today. First of all, I want to say that I was in India more than 40 times. I visited all spiritual places like Vrindavan, and I was in Hyderabad. I was in the most eastern part of India, the state Assam. And I'm big patriot of India and big patriot of Hindu-Russian relationships. And our relationship actually based on the spiritual platform, on the common traditions and history and mentality. As you know, India is a motherland of all spirituality and all mystical practices, and like yoga, like Asian philosophy and Vedas. And in our country right now is India became more popular regarding the wisdom of Vedas and other very spiritual and very significant achievements of your country. And I know that we have the common roots, Russia and India. This roots is like a Aryan tradition, Aryan path, we can say. And I know that right today, for example, if we are looking for the trade relationships, economic relationships, like trade exchange, it's not so big, for example, like relationships between Russia and China. Our total amount of our commercial deals, it's around 5-6 billions. For example, compare with China, it's 60 billions, many times more. But I'm absolutely sure that we have big and deep spiritual potential to develop our relationships. And I believe that we should be more focused to restart our cultural relationships. For example, if we're looking for the, if we ask the common Indian citizen what he knows about Russia, Right now, we see that more Indians, they're looking for the Western countries. They're looking for America. They're looking for some prosperity in Western countries. In Russia is in some informative field, in some media and social media fields. It's not so attractive for Indians, like, for example, Western countries. But I am completely sure that Russia and India together, we have big, huge spiritual mission. Our mission is support humanity, support spirituality, support traditional values. It's a very important point. And as you know, this year, 2021, is a year when India hosts all BRICS countries. BRICS Alliance, I'm absolutely sure, have a big potential future. That's why our International Diplomatic Club, we start a new project. We call this project BRICS Plus, and I'm a co-founder of this platform in our office in Middle East in Dubai. And I'm very happy advertise and inform all of you that our BRICS Plus platform, we became official partner of Expo 2021 in Dubai. As you know, 135 countries will be in Dubai. More than 100 presidents and prime ministers will visit Dubai during the Expo. And we will start our BRICS Plus platform conference every day from the end of October during the November and December this year on our corner, on our, we can say, the part of official Expo. Regarding Hindu and Russian relationships, it's everything depends of our leaders. We know that Vladimir Putin, our president, and Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, they have very unique, very deep and spiritual relationships. It's a real, proper friendship. As you know, Narendra Modi, he visited St. Petersburg Economic Forum. He visited Vladivostok Economic Forum. He visited even President of Russia in Sochi, in his residence. In improvement that our leaders looking forward to see both our countries at the same field, at the same attention, at the same platform. And what we can do, for example, I am president of International Diplomatic Club, and we do our culture diplomacy to support business through culture, through mentality, through the understanding of each other. It's very important in business because, for example, mentality of the Indian businessmen, it's different like a Russian businessman's. And that's why I'm completely sure that our future is a future to prepare some culture projects. We have to meditate and realize some project, some movie, for example, where Russian hero and Hindu lady, or maybe Russian lady and Hindu hero can be like through Bollywood, through all opinion leaders of social media, through some, personal relationships, B2B, heart to heart, person to person. All of us, we should support relationships between our countries. Because as I already mentioned, relationships between countries depends of the leaders, our leaders in close friendship. And also it depends of all of us. We should make more positive, we should give more positive information to the social media. We should make this process very intensive, very deep. And me, I have a spiritual mission. I practice yoga, bhakti yoga. As you can see, I always wear this Tulasi Mala. It's a special Indian treasure for me. And I was born in Christian family. I'm Christian, pure Christian, but at the same time, I am very honor the tradition of India. And this dialogue between our civilization, between our traditions, should be also support from the opinion leaders. That is my desire, is my mission of all my life. And finally, I want to invite all of you, dear colleagues, dear partners, to our conference BRICS Plus. And we also, with my beautiful friend, Dr. Asif, thanks God, thanks to Lord Vishnu that he sent to Allah, because he is Muslim. I know India is multicultural and multi-confessional country. And Dr. Asif, he came in this difficult times to St. Petersburg Economic Forum. I met him, and we together dream to prepare BRICS city in the world. And I hope we'll prepare special video, special clip together, and we'll promote through this video our relationships together. And we want to invite all of you with us to BRICS conference in St. Petersburg. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oriano. You gave a very different perspective. Historically, we have seen those countries which share civilizational values, common values, over a period of time come together. So I will come back to you. Now we are getting into the question and answer session. And my first question will be to you. I am personally very interested in the Bitcoin logo, which I see behind you.
Yeah. Yes, you see actual cryptocurrency and blockchain and artificial intelligence with my friends. If you want, I can also introduce all of them. Because they are right now Russian and Indian progress, and that's why I'm here today. And I will briefly introduce all my colleagues from this blockchain society to you, because they are very important people. It will be my final like replic of our today conversation. Just a moment. Извините, господа, буквально сейчас с нами вся Индия, 30 человек. Я хотел бы, БРИКС вышел с нами на связь. Они увидели лого. Да, и я поэтому хотел бы, да. Hello, everyone. Hello. This is Pavel Rudanovsky, the CEO of BRICS Plus. Namaste. Namaste. Yes. Mr. Igor, he's a head intelligence and blockchain and all his colleagues. Achievements of the company with us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. There are a lot of people in India.
That is one last. So we are ready. We are happy to be in deep relationship with India.
Thank you. There are a lot of people, a lot of companies in India working on blockchain technologies, and so we should connect a little later offline. So now I would like to call upon the dynamic president of the Indian Economic Trade Organization, Dr. Asif Iqbal, to share his views on the India-Russia strategic partnership his experiences and his advice to Indian entrepreneurs, especially in the healthcare, pharmaceutical, and defense space, on where they should start, where they should meet prospective investors, how they should identify opportunities. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Vijay Surana ji. Thank you for that very well meticulous conducting of this session and handling all the three panelists. I want to thank the panelists because they gave their valuable time. Mr. Ahmad, Mr. Olga, Miss Olga, and Mr. Sergey. It is indeed very heartwarming to see how India and Russian relationships can be built over with the people-to-people connect that we are doing right now. Conventionally, India and Russia has always been working on the larger government-to-government and G2G partnerships, like the defense partnerships, and in the case of health, we just recently had the Sputnik partnership happening again with a company which was mandated Reddy Labs. However, companies like Tech Invention and various other such companies who have a very huge potential and who have a canvas to grow in a space like Russian market, there needs to be mechanisms that need to evolve to connect people-to-people companies, medium, small enterprises. And one of the efforts that we have made is to make inroads into this people-to-people connect. Our visit recently to St. Petersburg, we resulted in meeting the governor in a region called Karelia region, for example, which is in the northern part of Russia, which is very close to Finland. In fact, a part of Karelia, 25% of it is in Finland and 75% of it is in Russia. And that's a very strategic location. Then St. Petersburg itself as a city is one of the largest cities, even larger than Paris and London in population, almost close to London. And the kind of ecosystem St. Petersburg has is much, much better than any other European country that we have seen. Apart from that, the infrastructure, the people, everything in Russia is, different. Only fact is that they have never marketed or publicized themselves like how the people in the West have done, including the Europe and the United States. So maybe that is one of the reasons why we have not been able to penetrate into the Russian side on a people-to-people level. And also the language could have been one of the barriers for Indian people there, because English is not a common language, and Russian being a language has not given too much of attention to Indian students and Indian academia. So this is one of the reasons I feel that there hasn't been much penetration. But of late, there has been a lot of welcoming gestures from the Russian side, and organizations headed especially by Olga and Mr. Sergey. They are doing a lot of work, and Mr. Sergey visits India very, very often. Almost every conference of ours he attends, and we attend their conferences in Russia. So I feel that there is a place for a lot of people-to-people connect, and we at the Indian Economic Trade Organization are working towards this effort. In fact, the ambassador of India, Mr. Venkatesh, also thrusted on the fact that there should be a lot of people-to-people connect, and more small, medium enterprises should enter Russia. Organizations, legal organizations like Surana and Surana can support the aspects of the ecosystem conducting and how to build up and what are the legal aspects that can take place. We can, get you some of the agencies, some of the governmental agencies in Russia to collaborate with Mr. Surana and Surana for helping Indian investors. We would like to see how we can handhold companies like that Mr. Ahmed's companies. So this case, we would like to connect and build up ecosystems. We have signed up MOUs with the St. Petersburg Chamber. We have signed up, explored MOUs to sign up with the Karelia Chamber of Commerce, with the Governorate of Karelia, and a few more companies in Moscow. We have been working with a lot of embassies in Moscow. And I think for India, Russia partnership, which was kind of disengaged after the Cold War, after 1990-91, we saw our relationship and our interactions coming down for whatever reasons, or maybe for the fact that the Western world dominated our engagements more and more than the Russian side. But I think it's time again for us to be much more closer to Russia and understand their strategic conceptualization. And as a partner, as a friend, they've always stood by our side, and we should be able to see that we build up these partnerships. And I look forward to cooperation from Olga, from their Indo-Russian, the business partnership that we have signed, and also Mr. Sergey, where we are going to be having, we have got 3 major conferences lined up. In October, we have the Gazprom conference for gas companies, and we are working on energy sector. We have got the BRICS conference are also coming up in November, and then another tourism conference where India is a special partner in the month of December. So we are working on 3 to 4 such programs in Russia, and hoping that they are facing the COVID wave right now. And we hope and we pray that this wave gets over soon, so that we can continue our engagements. And we look forward for all these companies to support the Indian Economic Trade Organization, vice versa. And also with the Eurasian Economic Union now, India is going to be an observer status, and the India-Eurasian International Council is also being established. It will be formally inaugurated in the month of August in New Delhi. So I would be sending invitation to Mr. Vinod Surana as well, and Said Ahmad and our other partners on the Russian side. So the 5 countries of Armenia, Belarus, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan are a part of it. India is going to be an observer status right now, and along with Uzbekistan. But India is going to get engaged itself in the Eurasian Economic Union. And I would like to invite Mr. Said Ahmad to come on the board of the health committee in that, and also Mr. Vinod Surana to come and join the board, so that we can work on interactions along with the 5 countries, with Russia being the main partner. I will brief you and update you on that. So India's role in working on the Eurasian region is coming to fore with the people-to-people connect, and organizations like ours will join hands to build this ecosystem to strengthen the vision and mission of our Prime Minister and our overall government, where people-to-people can build up the India-Russian relationship. So thank you so much, and we look forward how we can strengthen and support you people.
Thank you, Doctor. We did speak a lot on the opportunities in the healthcare, medical, and pharmaceutical areas. We have not touched on the defense much. So I thought I will take a few moments to speak about the defense sector. Of course, it is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about defense. My law firm has been working for many small and large defense manufacturing companies from India and overseas. We also represent the government of India, the Ministry of Defense, and are advising them on how to increase private sector participation in India's indigenization efforts. So what I would like to say here is, India is home to thousands of very high quality manufacturing companies who are plugged into the international supply chain, predominantly in the automobiles, electronics, engineering, optical, and autonomous vehicle fields. The techniques, technologies, and skills required in these sectors are same or very similar to what is required in the defense sector. So many of our clients from India are looking to get into this Make in India program, indigenization of thousands and thousands of components, weapons platforms, which the Indian government, Indian military is using. And therefore, one of the things I would like to work with Dr. Asif Iqbal, the Indian Economic Trade Forum, and others like Ms. Olga, is to see how we can get the Indian manufacturers who have expertise and track record in high quality manufacturing to tie up with Russian companies and work together to offer their services to the Indian armed forces to upgrade literally hundreds of thousands of pieces of equipment. So with those comments on the opportunities available in the Indian defense manufacturing sector, we would now move to the question answer session. There are many questions for Ms. Olga. You spoke about industrial parks, opportunities in telemedicine, etc. So the question is, what is your advice on the language barrier? How difficult or how easy is it for Indians who predominantly speak English to work with Russia?
Yes, of course, language is an issue. Yes, I should have mentioned in my speech, but of course, for communication, we're talking about English language only. because nobody speaks Hindu or any other Indian language in here. Difficult to find people. Major industrial parks, their people do speak English already, and of course in our central cities also people do speak English. So it has become a common practice that English is a working language, though I can't but admit that issues can be there. But my advice is not to be afraid of this because this is manageable. And going to Russia with the English language is possible, and so it can be solved.
So there are a lot of English speaking people and English translation services available.
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Okay. A question to all the four panelists. Russia is a very interesting country. It is the largest landmass, very, very, very small population per million. And due to global warming, the amount of usable land is actually increasing. So what are the opportunities you see for highly qualified Indians? Is there a program in Russia to attract highly qualified professionals to settle down like some of the Western countries have? So would you like to take that question, Dr. Asif Iqbal? Then we will go to Olga also.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Vinod. We have been interacting with a couple of local, governors. Governors are like the chief ministers in India, so they control their own territories and their own regions. So most of them have different programs, and there are different regions having different policies as far as these kind of things are concerned. For example, I spoke to you about Karelia region. I spoke to you about Vladivostok, regions. These regions are all encouraging very much, and and they have got certain sectors like the gas sector. They have got energy sector. So there are certain sectors that they are very open to and welcoming, and at the same time they're also looking at setting up Indian special economic zones. Last time when we met at the St. Petersburg, they were talking about having an Indian special economic zone where Indian companies can come with an Indian ecosystem, and we were also exploring various such methods. So I think that tourism should increase and business tourism should increase, where business people actually explore the place and understand, because a lot of people have a misconception about Russia, thinking that it's a pure poor country and it's underdeveloped. And I think it's completely not right at all. They have to visit once to understand how advanced it is. In my personal opinion, I have lived in Paris for 10 years, and I think it is much more advanced as far as technology and infrastructure and other ecosystems are concerned. St. Petersburg is a very advanced city, and Moscow also is a very advanced city, except that they're very silent and very quiet about their achievements. They have never gone around talking about it. So if we are able to do that, we are doing that right now with a lot of Indian people, a lot of Indian businessmen, business companies, and we plan to head some delegations in the month of September and October, waiting for the COVID norms and COVID restrictions. So I think there are a lot of opportunities, and the authorities there are also asking us to give them certain ideas as to how they can create some good ecosystems. And we have never seen, in Russia when I was traveling, I've never seen any kind of danger on the streets or on the roads. Everything is safe. There is a very good security ecosystem in place, and it's absolutely a wonderful place as far as Indian people are concerned. And I think they must explore, and we will look forward and we will see and encourage them to explore the place more and more.
Olga, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I just have some comments regarding the highly qualified specialists. So right now we have been approached with this from Indian embassy. So right now we're working. There are a few companies working on the projects in the north of Russia. It's Murmansk region. This is the highly qualified specialists in construction. Then, of course, these are highly qualified specialists who are required in the energy sector, especially in the projects that are done by ONGC. And right now there is an energy center that's been formed, Indian Energy Center that's been formed in Moscow. And of course, Indian specialists can be welcomed in agriculture sector. in the southern region of Russia. So, and right now there are projects running, so also waiting for the COVID restrictions to be lifted to proceed.
Right, thank you. Dr. Asif Iqbal, you mentioned about business tourism and taking some delegations. So we would like to get your views on which are the sectors that you're looking at to be represented on these delegations, and which are the regions in Russia which you are going to look at to visit.
Yes, we are looking at regions of Vladivostok, St. Petersburg, and Sochi, along with the Karelia region. There are 4 regions that we are working on, and these are the regions very prospective, and each region has its own, like for example, Karelia region has a lot of agricultural opportunities, and being close to Finland, there's a lot of IoT in agriculture and a lot of technologies that can come into agriculture. So most of the technical teams that are working in India, working on the agricultural technology, can contribute on that side. And in the Vladivostok side, we have got a lot of gas and energy security companies having a lot of options and opportunities. Being on the border of China and India, Vladivostok is a very strategic location. Sochi is once again a region for overall business development, where there is technology, where there is a lot of sports, a lot of infrastructure development opportunities in Sochi. St. Petersburg, of course, being the city and the capital, commercial capital of Russia, and very close to the borders of Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. It has got a very good tourism potential. And I think I've noticed that in the past, whenever somebody wants to go as a businessman, he has to first go as a tourist. He has to first go and explore and integrate himself with the culture of the country. I think that's the first potential that St. Petersburg has. It has a massive potential for tourism. And we would like to start taking business visits to people to start exploring opportunities. So they go and initially understand the place and explore the place. So 4 regions is what we focus on: Karelia region, St. Petersburg, Vladivostok, and Sochi. These are the 4 areas. Of course, Moscow being the administrative capital will always be an important place for positioning. But as far as investments are concerned, Moscow is expensive for investors right now. But there are a lot of tourism and hospitality projects that are, especially post-COVID-19, we have analyzed a lot of hospitality projects in St. Petersburg, and we are presenting it to a few of our businessmen.
Okay, questions are coming in fast. The next question is for both Ms. Olga and Mr. Syed Ahmed. Olga, you mentioned about opportunities in agriculture in southern Russia, and Mr. Syed Ahmed in his speech spoke about opportunities in agriculture in one of his slides. So can we have some more information on opportunities in agriculture? Also, you may want to touch upon foreign ownership of land in Russia. Can we purchase land? Can we lease land? Are there any restrictions? Things like that. Mr. Syed Ahmed, are you there?
Yeah. So sorry, I think there has been a slight miscommunication. My slides were very specific to pharma and vaccines. We did talk about lysines and bacteriophages, for which the technology is very well evolved in Russia, and there is a huge opportunity in India because there's a lot of antimicrobial resistance. But those categories again fall specifically in the healthcare sector, not necessarily in the agricultural sector. And honestly, frankly, I'm not competent to comment on agriculture. Having said that, I would like to take the liberty of answering one question which was addressed to Ms. Olga earlier on the language barrier. Over the last 5 years, we have seen a huge transition like what she mentioned. Today, almost all organizations have 1 or 2 English-speaking people. So they interpret it extremely well. We have weekly teleconferences as part of our tech transfer and industrial design projects, and we don't have any issue. Yes, initially we had a challenge when in the Central America project, because then the translation had to happen in 3 languages: English to Russia, Russia to Spanish. So the timing would go out of gear, because if you schedule something for 15 minutes, it would go on to almost 30 minutes. And we had a shock when we went to Brazil for a presentation. So we had Russia, Portuguese, Spanish, and English. But then over a period of time, you learn to overcome this. But very interesting. Language, I feel, is no longer a barrier. And we've been doing it extremely well. So no issues on that.
So I will answer on the agriculture question then, if I may. So the land ownership, of course, is an issue. Agricultural land is not allowed to be owned by the foreigners, as well as the land close to the borders, to the land borders. Though there are different ways of possibility of using the land that has been recognized by the law, and one of the variants that has been suggested, let's say, in Russia in respect of the agriculture is the lease of land and doing the agricultural works there first, and secondly, of course, this is the use of different technologies that are being developed, for example, in Russia. So, for example, in Michurinsk, this is a city in Tambov, they have innovation center of agriculture. So they welcome all countries to take their participation in that. So they have they have different approaches to how to increase the growth of the products, and so that could be also the way of cooperation. And so, of course, sale and purchase of agricultural products, that's not even, we're not even discussing that. And agritech, that is also can be another sphere of interest, because this area, this sphere, I would say, is being is in the process of being digitalized. Digitalization. Different projects in agritech are also very welcomed. So depending on the request, I think the options can be found, since there are quite a lot of regions that are engaged in the agriculture.
Right. We have another question. You did mention about identification of joint venture partner being very important in the whole process. What is the legal process? Is there a treaty between India and Russia, or does Russia have a legal framework which recognizes foreign arbitration awards and judgments? Can you say something about that?
Yes, of course. If we talk about legal side of cooperation, that can be done based on the English law or Russian law, and of course, apart from the court procedure, court legal procedures, there are different ways of arbitration. So we recognize international arbitration as well as a Russian arbitration. A part of that now. There is the Institute of I forgot the English word of let's say people who settle the disputes. Yeah, kind of. I just forgot.
Mediators.
Mediator, exactly. So the Institute of Mediators now is becoming more and more popular. I myself as a mediator. Also, so things are in this respect, they're becoming more and more stabilized, let's say.
Okay, we have a question from the former Joint Secretary of the Medical Council of India. The question is, how can we use the opportunity in medical education and medical tourism between Russia and India? How much does it cost to get a medical education?
I can answer this question because we just recently explored the situation. Medical education is available in different regions of Russia, and of course the price of this education varies. Unfortunately or fortunately, the cheapest price is around $3,500 US per year. This is the cheapest we could find right now. And it is, of course, regional education. In Moscow, it costs a lot more. There are educational programs as well as the programs in English language. But there is only the question of the price and let's say booking of the places, because there is a high interest from international students for medical education. So that has to be very carefully explored, because I know there are companies in India who claim to provide that kind of services, but that has to be very carefully explored. So summing it all up, education is possible. It can be expensive, and it has to be pre-booked. That is regarding medical education. Regarding business travels, that is a very good idea, and I myself support it very much. And I think that Dr. Asif has correctly mentioned necessity to visit regions. And we, from our side as Business Russia, we always try to participate in such missions, because we have presence in all regions, so we know business climate there quite well. And of course, no webinars can replace a meeting in person and knowing people and the culture. It's very important, and I completely support that.
Thank you. I have two questions for Mr. Syed Ahmed. Manufacturers of Indian pharmaceutical products, how can they get information? Is there any source of information? Is there any website? Is there any magazine? Is there any industry journal where they can get more information about opportunities in pharmaceutical industry in Russia? So that is the first question. Second question is, could you please explain some more about telemedicine? How can Indian doctors and medical professionals provide telemedicine services to Russian patients?
Yeah, as far as the first question goes, there are two aspects to it. One is the public procurement program, and the annual tenders are released by the Central Procurement Ministry of Health, and there are also regional provincial tenders. So this information can be provided by any of the groups that are supporting us out there in Russia. In fact, and I'm sure we can talk to Dr. Asif or Ms. Olga and get information, because this is the public, this data is there in the public domain, just that it is more in Russian, so it would need to be translated. As far as the private market goes, we will have to subscribe for IQVIA data, or formerly IMS, now it is IQVIA. IQVIA does have a good coverage of Russian private market of pharmaceuticals. So you will have to subscribe it. It is fairly expensive, but then what you can do is the area that you are focusing on, like CNS drugs or pain or cardiology, you can ask for a specific report pertaining to those sectors to make it more economical. IQVIA does have a good presence in India, their headquarters in Mumbai and almost all the metros. So we can connect you to IQVIA and you can take the reports out there. Having said that, pharmaceutical, especially if you're looking at oral solid dosages, a couple of points to keep in mind is, if you're trying to export a product from here to Russia for a finished product, it would require a bioequivalence or a clinical study to be done locally. So you will have to be prepared for that and make sure that your product qualifies. And the data from India would not be acceptable out there, point number one. Point number two is, if you're planning for a strategic partnership, better to focus on the list of 185 products, which the Russian government has put on high priority, because that will enable fast tracking, ease of regulatory hurdles. And when you get into a strategic collaboration, it makes things easier for everyone.
Right. There is one specific question. I don't know which of the panelists can answer that. The question is, how beneficial is the new development in India-Russia space relationship including launching Russian spacecraft by Indian rockets and joint venture on the Glasnost navigation system. Do you see any business opportunities there for Indian companies?
Well, I would like to suggest about because this GLONASS system is very parallel to the Russia's NASA, and if you have to do any kind of partnership, you always need clearances from the government, and if that can happen, because we have got around 21 satellites and NASA has around 24 satellites, so GLONASS has 21 satellites. So if there is any partnership to be done, then it's they need clearances, and there could be collaborations made on that one. So it is any day better than NASA. And there are again programs that people can get into like NASA. So GLONASS is something where people can look forward to, especially the student community can look forward.
Sorry, do you have anything to say about the training and educational opportunities for Indian students with Glasnost, just like NASA offers training and internship opportunities? Do you have any, I mean, can you throw any light?
Well, yes, there are certain agencies that we can provide, and students who are interested can approach to them, and there is a separate Russian education network in New Delhi that supports and helps on these ones, and the Russian Cultural Center also has an office to support education platforms for this. Absolutely, yes.
Right. Another question is for any of the panelists. This is regarding Olga had mentioned about industrial parks. We in India, we think of industrial parks as special economic zones and government promoted industrial zones where they have special incentives in terms of subsidized power, subsidized land, special connectivity, things like that. How would you describe industrial parks in Russia? Is it something similar?
Well, the one that we had spoken to was specifically for farmers, for the Indian park. They wanted to classify based on the sector, and that would mainly collaborate and correlate on the customs advantages for companies that are working in, and also certain tax exemptions. So these are the only two things that they would offer us. And I think that is good enough for starters, like a 5-year tax-free holiday would be what they would propose with the Indian special economic zone. And along with that, certain concessional pricing for the land that would be given since it is allocated by the ministries. So these are the two areas we could have worked around.
Right. Here is a 40,000 feet question. Given the current international geopolitical situation, there is a growing rivalry between United States and China. There is a polarization happening. India is connected to Russia through the continental route, the continental partner. What is a long-term view you have about India-Russia partnership in the next 25 to 30-year horizon? Do you see great linkages in terms of trade, investment, commerce, common infrastructure projects? Yes, I do know that we have two large projects like connecting Chennai with Vladivostok,
Yes.
connecting India with the European side of Russia, things like that, through the CIS countries and Iran. So in the current geopolitical background, what is your view of India-Russia strategic partnership? Where do you see the thrust areas?
I would see the India-Russia's Far East side. The Far East part of Russia is what is going to be closer to India in the future. And I think with the connecting of the maritime treaty between Chennai and Vladivostok is one area. And we also provided 1 billion of credit line to Russia, Far East side to develop. So this is quite a big development. Apart from that, we have had the Quad, which is not a completely comfortable situation with as far as Russia is concerned, because we partnering with the United States and a few more countries like Japan and Australia to counter the strategic location of Russia is something that is a little bit of an issue right now, but we are trying to address that, and our government is trying to work around this particular collaboration. And also the recent aspect of the S-400 missiles, where the United States had sanctions because we bought them from Russia. But the fact was, China also purchased them from Russia, and we needed to understand the technologies, and that was the reason why we had to buy from them. So I think these are the small dynamics that will, matter, and we need to overcome these. And I'm sure we'll be able to overcome these with the time passing by.
Right. Olga, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, well, I would say that geopolitically right now, Russia is very much interested in cooperation with India. And so now let's say the ball is on the Indian side, depending on how the elections will go and what would be the, let's say, the strategy of cooperation. So that is if we're talking about geopolitical situation. Though I would say very important is, of course, the connection, the logistics between India and Russia, because Far East is not, all Russia. And of course, the corridor, the north-south corridor that is being talked a lot for quite some time, that could possibly ease the trade between India and Russia. It is, I think, is very important. And in respect, taking into consideration that it goes through the territory of third parties, let's say, it's very important for both countries to have the prevailing control, let's say, or at least understanding with them, because in case China shows up there, I mean, if I were China, I would never allow this corridor go alive. So that's why I think it's very important right now just to develop this part of cooperation as well.
Right. We have a question. Maybe Mr. Syed Ahmed or Ms. Olga can take it. The question is opportunities for Indian software developers providing services to healthcare providers and medical sector in Russia. What are the opportunities?
I would
Mr. Syed
say
Ahmed,
it depends. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I say my opinion that it depends on the software, so because there are different types of software, different quality of software. So if we're talking about some serious things, they do have high potential. If we're talking about some minor issues, that could be quite competitive, because Russian software is also available, so they can start competing with each other. And of course, in the Russian market, Russians will have will have dominance. So it depends on the level of seriousness of this medical software. This is my opinion.
Yeah, Mr. Syed Ahmed, you wanted to say something.
When it comes to software, from my experience, in fact, when you look at hospital management, managing retail pharmacy chains, there is definitely a good potential out there. But yeah, there is also a very good potential to automate the entire industrial zones, especially when it comes to pharma industry. People are using ERPs now. That's where there's a lot of potential out there, and you need to get into ERP, and that's where the pharma industry is graduating towards. I think that there's a lot of potential for Indian companies out there on that front. Having said that, a separate comment that I would like to make more for you, Mr. Surana. What I've been experiencing is the IP system in Russia is getting fairly evolved. Okay, so there are good opportunities to protect your intellectual property by either of the three routes. If you're looking at very specific to Russia, you file a conventional patent. You want to go through the Eurasian route, take it through the Eurasian route. And of course, Russia is a member of PCT, so that gives you a global coverage as well. So people who are working on research, on software, on developing newer concepts in healthcare, you can definitely protect your intellectual property through the IP route there, which it's getting much more evolved.
Thank you, Mr. Syed. That was a very, very pertinent question, answer, very, very important point for most of the Indian companies who are developing products and services. Thank you very much. Before I go to the last question, I know we have crossed 94 minutes. Our outer limit was 90 minutes. So before I go, I put the last question before the panelists. There is a request to Olga and to Dr. Asif. Please share with us information about your respective organizations. Is there a membership form? Please share it. Some of the participants would like to become members of the respective organizations. So my office will connect with you, get the information and disseminate it. So the last question which I would place before each of the panelists is, what are the 2 takeaways which you would have for our participants when it comes to India-Russia strategic partnership? How can Indian companies benefit from this strategic partnership? 2 takeaways. Let me start with Dr. Asif.
Well, I think one of the things is, I would like to encourage people to take away from this particular thing, how to get an orientation of the India-Russia relationship and partnership. And an overview of that is what we can provide to people who are wants it. And 2 is we would be able to actually help them physically, locate and, find themselves there in a very comfortable position where we can help and support them. So these 2 takeaways people can be very comfortable with, and we are ready for that.
Mr. Syed Ahmed.
Yeah, things are not as different as it seems. 5-6 years ago, people were always thinking that Russia has got extreme weather, different culture, language barrier, difference in food and so on. So that's not exactly what it is. Over a period of time, things have improved. You find a lot of signboards in English, unlike the case which wasn't earlier, about a decade ago. So things are improving. Russia is in transition, and they are extremely friendly. So to that extent, I would encourage people to look at Russia as a potential collaboration. Point number 2 is, if there were to be challenges, it's more a concept of misunderstanding, which eventually comes up. So to that extent, interpretation, language, you should be on the same page. For example, all our contracts, and I'm sure that that's the case in most of the established companies, are bilingual. So you will have to have all bilingual contracts to make sure that whatever is represented on each side is the same. Like Olga mentioned, arbitration, earlier the thought was it has to be in Russia. Today they are open to ICC, they are open to international, people even look at UK for that matter, or for that matter Singapore and Dubai. Some of our contracts have arbitrations out there. So things are opening up. Please do look at Russia. They're extremely friendly. Ethics, integrity is what we observe with our partners over the last few years of having worked out there.
Thank you. Before we go to Olga, 2 points from Mr. Uriano. 2 takeaways for our audience. Do we have Mr. Uriano?
I think he's gone.
He's dropped.
Yeah.
I think we dropped him. Okay, Olga, you will have the last word. The first word and the last word in our organization is always with the ladies.
So I know what Sergey would have said. First point would say, I would say, don't be afraid and don't consider Russia as a terra incognita, This is my first takeaway. And the second one, from my experience, I can say that Russians and the Indians are very much alike, though they probably do not see it from the first sight. So my advice would be, regard Russians as if you would regard Indians. So we're the same. We have a very close mentality, very close understandings of how things have to be organized. So that's why that could be also one of the things that would ease your way into the Russian business and into the Russian market. And I'm sure that would be very important in building up close relationships.
Thank you. That was very well said. And if I was a news reporter reporting about this webinar tomorrow, my headline will be India, Russia, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.